the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morning all.
Good morning.
Call the meeting to order, and is there anything else on the agenda?
I think that's enough.
The only change I have is adopt resolution 2022-11 at the bottom, midway up should be 2013.
So we're gonna do 2012 first, or 2212 before we do 11?
It's actually 13.
So the one that says 2211 should be 2213.
Okay.
I will make the motion that we make that correction, resolution 2022 from 11 to 13.
All right, with that change, do we have a motion? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second to switch those numbers around, and that will be our agenda. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approve the minutes from the 20th.
I'll make that motion.
Those were nice and...
Second that. I even actually...
Yeah, they were not much to look at.
There you go.
I'll second that. Looks...
Motion and a second for the 20th minutes. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. General public concerns. Nobody on Zoom. We have the claims. I'm sorry. We'll do the claims.
I got
Dave?
$377,536.41. 377,536.41. And drainage of $4,552.05. 4552.05.
I'll second that.
Those are the numbers I had also. Have a motion and a second for those numbers. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carried. Now, general public concerns. Being none, hand this in there quick. And we can go to the public hearing.
We're early though, we gotta wait 5 minutes. We could do
Yeah,
our,
and we can talk for 5 minutes.
we can do our committee report, get that done. So on Wednesday, the 23rd, I had, or no, I'm sorry, 22nd, I had a Rolling Hills meeting that I did by Zoom. And then also on the 23rd, I had a Iowa WD on Zoom. That's it. My kitty cat,
Wednesday the 22nd, had a Midas meeting, Fort Dodge City Hall. And, Thursday, had a Board of Adjustment meeting with Randy.
Anything else, Dave?
That's it.
This past Thursday, the 23rd, we had a Emergency Management Association meeting that evening on the 23rd.
That's it?
Yep, that's it for me.
Okay, on Monday, the 20th, I had a meeting up here with Trish and Sandy. Tuesday, the 21st, we had an UDMO financial meeting. That was over the phone, conference call. Wednesday, I visited with Alyssa O'Connor by phone on the, I'm on that pantry board meeting with her, so we visited on that. Thursday, I tried getting hooked up with, CFR. I don't know what was going on with the phones, but I couldn't get hooked to their Zoom, so I didn't get to attend that meeting, so that's what I had for the week. Yep. All right, we're still early for our public meeting, or public hearing. How are we doing, on their cabling and whatnot? Are they all ready to move that stuff, Trish?
Waiting on the phone system with, COM1.
Okay, did we get any, people coming to air conditioner quotes?
One.
Well, at least we got one. So, I guess that's better than what we had. Geez, 2 minutes.
A watch pot never boils.
No, I know.
Wanna go down, you wanna come down?
How about the, something that's easy, Class C liquor license?
Well, we could do them. We have a Class C liquor license and outdoor sales for the Humboldt County Dragway, excuse me, LLC, or that's been looked over and everything's up to date for them? Okay,
I'll make that motion.
we have a motion
Second that.
and a second to accept, or approve a Class C liquor license for the Humboldt County Dragway. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Pose same sign, that is approved.
They never had a liquor license out there before, have they?
I guess I don't recall.
So all we need is people racing and drinking liquor.
Well,
Well, I guess they probably don't let
yeah,
it.
I don't think the license was really deterring them too much.
It's just, but the people in the stands, it's like the race was, all the other towns, they can partake, so. How about the hire,
Yeah, we can do that one.
accept the hire of Christopher Madison as, the Informational Technology Administrator in Humboldt?
That would be a great addition. He has a lot of experience and...
Do you wanna give a little brief background? You were in on the review.
Yep, he,
Local kid?
local, he's from Humboldt, worked down at Iowa Central. He's been a teacher and also a helper on their call center type thing to help out on their calls and things like that. He's been down there for a while. I don't have his resume right. Was it 15 years or something like that? 15 or 17 years? Yeah, and that's what he's been doing for a while, so I think he'll be great. I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to hire Chris Madison, as the Informational Technology Administrator, and that is starting July 1. So, any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I was writing my notes, sorry.
July 1st, okay, so we starting right up here.
I had his resume sitting out on my counter. I was gonna bring that and throw it in the thing, and I forgot.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. Now we're 8:41.
Hey.
Perfect.
We are open. All right. This is,
We did a budget amendment of the amount of $217,000, and that will appropriate the funds and correct them for the Board of Supervisors, budget, the recorders, the district court, Veterans Affairs, the medical examiner, and the sanitarian. And the reason the Board of Supervisors budget is deficient is because of the allocation of ARP funds. It is under there, so in order to spend it, you have to have it budgeted for, even though, so it's just a formality.
so basically this gets us through the end of the year,
Correct.
which is in the week.
And there's been a huge increase in services to others, such as the Veterans Affairs, the medical examiner, and district court.
discussion? No public input, being there's no one beating the door down here.
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
Second that?
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing, and we'll do that at 8:43. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution 2022-11, which approves the Humboldt County budget amendment for the fiscal year 21-22.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt, resolution 22-11, approving the budget amendment for the 2021-2022 budget. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You sign on the bottom. Okay. Do we have, time to do Ben?
But we do. You got 15 minutes.
Ben, you got...
You can use 5.
I can do it at 5.
That's perfect.
You are,
yeah.
trying to get close to the top of the list today.
How we doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. I've got a couple of applications for work in the county right away for Humboldt Power Company. They are redoing their line that runs along the southern part of the county. Most of it will be on private property because they run at a half-mile line. There is a 1-mile section on Elm Avenue, between 270th and 250th, where they'll be running a 1-mile stretch right away. They'll be running from the half-mile between 250th and 260th to the half-mile between 260th and 270th. Where they jog, their east-west stretch.
Is this essentially just new poles?
For the most part, I'm sorry, I'm just here, for the most part, it's new poles.
Are they replacing existing? Are they adding?
Yeah, they'll be replacing wires, they'll be replacing, putting new wire in.
I mean, it's nothing new that isn't already there. These are upgrades to the...
There'll be upgrades to what the existing system is. There is a picture on one of these, I don't know if I included it for you, showing the route.
Yep.
So you can see the blue line is a line segment that they're planning on retiring.
We're just black and white, we don't have colors.
I'm sorry. There's an extra nickel to print in color.
Probably a quarter.
There's the color copy. So the line looks like, to me, the line looks like it's moving down a mile. At least through Corinth Township.
So is the hash,
The proposed new line segment.
is the hash line, is that the new line, or is
The
this
dash line is the one that's being removed.
Okay.
And this heavier line is the one.
current, gonna be the new?
Yeah.
So the solid one is the new,
The solid one is the new.
and this is the old.
Yes.
Kind of describes it.
But they'll be putting in new poles. There's a copy of the type of poles that they're looking at installing. And then they'll be within, I think they're coming 3.5 feet in to the county's right away for that pole. That way they don't have to pay, overhang. To the farmers.
Are those, wood or they steel?
That, I guess, this one says wood. 65-foot class
Yeah,
one
wood
wood
pole,
pole.
yeah.
Well, everything else is in order, I mean,
Yep,
we don't have
their
to...
insurance and everything, and
I'm assuming their specs are all what they need, so...
I'll make that motion to approve. the right of way for Corn Belt, Power Cooperative to install new poles on Elm, sections 23 and 26 in Weaver Township.
I got a picture of the pole.
Yep.
Yep.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of that for Corn Belt. Any other discussion?
69,000 volt line.
And we're still good.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
You need two separate things.
One for sign that?
One for
Alright.
You know what's that?
Yeah, we need
The application for the rebuilt line. Which one did we...
I did the top.
We did the top
Yeah, I
one.
did the top one, I did.
Okay, how about along with that, I'll make a motion for the approval of the work in the county right of way for Corn Belt Power to rebuild the line across the county in Weaver, Cornish, and Beaver Township.
I'll second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Is that this one then? Okay.
The reason they did them in two separate ones is one is a brand new stretch of line in the county's right away on Elm where there wasn't one existing.
What is, that, like the rest of the summer for them?
This is gonna be later on in the summer. They're trying to get their ducks in a row so that they can start
Putting the
poles
area?
up. They thought they'd have all the materials by August, but they wanna get all their permits and everything covered ahead of time.
Knock on wood, there's not a storm somewhere and they lose their poles for, yeah. All right.
Also on the agenda, I've got discussion and possible action on the 4th of July, keeping my employees on the 410s, which would switch that holiday from an 8-hour day to a 10-hour day. The past 3 years, we've been doing 410s from Memorial Day to Labor Day, basically, with the guys switching back to 8s the week of the 4th of July. The comments have been, you know, just when we get in the groove of things of running 410s, they switch us back to the 8s for a week and then jump back into 10s again. For simplicity, it'd be easy to just say we're running 410s from Memorial Day to Labor Day. It does give the guys an extra 2 hours, holiday pay, but they also save us a half an hour each week that they're on 410s, because we're not paying for 2 15-minute breaks on Friday.
I see that reasoning behind that. The only problem is, once you do that, then you're setting a precedent, and it is policy is 8 hours. I'm just going strictly on policy and what, so I'm not sure if that's always a good thing. You probably should have thought to get a hold of me tonight and ask him what.
I think we had some discussion on this earlier. They would get 10-hour pay, whatever, for the holiday, because it's during the 10-hour day period.
Right.
And they still wouldn't work on Friday.
Right. So the week of 4th of July, they'd work,
They'd work 4 8s and then get a holiday.
Oh, they work their 3 10-hour days.
So,
Right.
the way it stands right now, they'd get Monday off as an 8-hour holiday, and they'd have to work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yep.
For 8 hours.
For 8 hours.
For 8 hours.
If we changed it to this, they'd work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 10-hour days. So, on this particular week.
Yeah.
Right, on that week. I'm just not.
I don't know, I don't know, people, you know.
Yeah, with the holiday pay, that's the only thing that I'm not wild about, because holiday pay is 8 hours. I understand their reason, they're thinking they're getting, but it's 1 week.
Right.
And they're getting in the groove of things. I mean, I see their point, but I also see the policy point of where vacation days are 8-hour days.
Holiday days or...
Holidays. I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say vacation, holiday days.
Okay.
The tongue doesn't wanna say, but,
I'm looking at it as I don't know, and I'm not in the policy-making mode, but
Right.
if they have the 10-hour holiday, to me, it'd be nice if they were working on Friday one way or the other, because it's a really short week for them, no matter how many hours they're working, you know? And it's just, it happens to be holiday, and they should get bare minimum 8 hours designated pay. I just thought, well, you know what, if they got the 10 hours there, I think they should work on Friday, which obviously they get paid for working, but that was me. It's just, that would give them, you know, keep it at,
Yeah, they'd
So,
have
I mean,
overtime, so we're losing
just-
money.
yeah,
on that.
you lose.
no, if we're gonna do, they'd have to do 8 hours that week. I mean, that's the only point I'm taking, is everybody else gets an 8-hour holiday pay. And if we differentiate from that, what precedent is that setting then for, you know, everything? And so it's just setting a precedent.
But nobody else works 10-hour days.
The whole thing right there.
Correct, correct.
Law enforcement, they work 12s, don't they?
I don't know what their shifts are, they vary some, but
I can't answer that.
I kinda see what Sandy's point on that, and, you know, I think the biggest thing of it was, we're used to the 10-hour days, which is great, and hopefully we discussed when we went to that, it's more productive, you know, given the time of year and everything. You don't always get Fridays off, but, yeah, I mean, so you go back for basically 4 days of 8-hour days after the holiday. Yeah, it's not gonna, I don't think it throws that huge of a wrench into their program.
It's fine, I proposed it, that's what some of the other counties have done. It made sense to me talking to the other counties, and that's why I presented it to you guys.
Right. I don't know, what do you think, Dave? I'm the only one person, so I don't wanna...
Well, I've been on both sides of the fence, and to keep it straight, I understand their point, I understand your point, but I would say, let them go Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for 10 hours. They got their 8 hours, so it's not gonna cost you that much more to go. So I'd say go with it.
My question is if it was on Friday, and they work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and the 4th was on Friday,
They'd get Thursday off.
that's
Yeah.
what I was gonna say. They get the day before, because that's what we do. So, we're the ones that went to them and asked them to go to 410s. They didn't come to us, did they?
Yeah, they did.
No, they didn't.
Did they?
Rick was the one that,
I had a few guys that were interested in it.
Okay, I thought...
but Rick was the one that brought it up.
Wasn't there other counties that had gone to that? That kind of was
Quite a
initiated,
few counties have switched.
and that kind of got the talk going for this county.
But we just thought we could get more production, especially when we had bigger projects going on, so we asked them. But that's, I don't have a vote, unless Rick calls in and I have to do the split.
I don't know, I could see Sandy's point, it's specified as the holiday pay is 8 hours. And so,
You've looked at other counties, they've done it,
Yeah.
they do the 10-hour thing. Is it all of them, do you think, that do it, or
No,
majority of them?
not all counties are 410s. I haven't sent out a doodle poll to find out what every county's
That does the 410s?
Right.
What they do? Okay, I thought you said that you checked in with some other counties.
Wright County, they go 410s from the beginning of May until Labor Day.
Mhm. And the holidays the same way?
And they treat the holidays as a 10-hour day, so that they stay on 10s.
Mhm.
How about if we just go yearly, come back again next holiday and we'll...
I can bring it up again next year, and I'll check with more counties than just the surrounding counties.
I think I'd agree with Sandy on the 8-hour holiday pay period. And then, but again, they also...
Off it off, I mean, you can take...
Right.
Vacation day.
Yeah, and that doesn't alter it.
Right.
And plus, they go back to the 8 hours for the 4 days then. I'd see that as a, and then, you know, I guess that's a pretty fair deal. Like I said, and, I mean, yeah, I don't think it's gonna, like, throw a huge monkey wrench into anything. They, you know, some guys didn't, secondary roads guys didn't wanna go to 10-hour day, so they get back to an 8, so, you know, I think they'll be just fine in working through their week. And correct me if I'm wrong, but on this 10-hour day time frame, is it only the 4th of July that even enters into a holiday pay day?
Yeah, because we don't start until after Memorial.
After Memorial, you end before Labor Day. So this is the only holiday that enters in. So there again, yeah. So, I would, I don't know. We just had that.
We just said
It's just discussion.
I think we discussed it, and I think we would leave it the same.
Okay.
We'll get some input from how everybody else is doing it, and we'll see where you wanna go with it then.
And we might wanna check with, Mike Galloway, just to see if that's since that is a policy. You know what I mean, just to make sure that we're all...
We're not deviating from the policy.
Right, that we're all in sync.
All right, anything else?
You guys know we ran into a mess up on Quebec Avenue north of 170th Street.
I read or saw your picture. How did,
So we
that
had
wasn't in our plan, did that thing from the middle of the road?
Nope.
Wow. How deep was it?
We had a hole in the shoulder of the road that our blade operator saw, and it was roughly about an 8-foot wide, 8-foot deep hole. And when we started digging, we found rotten steel pipe that was all rusted out. There was about 30 foot of that was running underneath the road, and the whole bottom was rusted out, tied into a concrete head wall, which had a concrete box culvert with a wooden top on top of it. Wood was rotting. And then he had a 18-inch tile and a 12-inch tile that dumped into it. So it was an old bulkhead that used to be where the edge of the county's right-of-way was at, that they put a lid on top of and a concrete head wall, and then extended it across the road, and it's all underground, so.
And no one knew it was there?
Nobody knew it was there.
Oh, my gosh.
Is this a functioning tile system?
Yeah, it's running like crazy right now, so.
But when they redid something, they buried all the old stuff, is that kind
Well,
of...
it could've moved the road.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just saying, they could've moved the road from where it was at the original spot.
right, so, I mean, completely guessing, 60 years ago, this thing probably dumped into a more or less drop inlet at the edge of the right-of-way and ran under the road, and they fattened it so that everything stayed underground. Yeah,
Where are you at on that?
Where are you at?
Yeah.
We are trying to find 30-inch concrete pipe, which is turning into being a little bit more of an issue than we thought. Right before I came here, Forterra thought they had enough pieces there in the yard that they could patch and Band-Aid together to get us fit. So Tom was on his way down there with the trailer. He's trying to pick up what they have, and fingers crossed, hopefully towards the end of the day, we'll have something.
So, will we, I guess, are we gonna try to leave it there, or fix it and move it, or how, I mean, I guess...
We're tearing out everything that was under the road.
Okay.
I mean, the steel was junk. The concrete head wall underneath the road with this drop inlet that was concrete with a wooden top on it, it's not sustainable. So we're gonna run concrete pipe all the way across the road and then tie in the tile into that concrete out in the road ditch off of the road. So,
What I wondered.
Essentially, you're replacing all the old stuff that went on the road.
Yep.
To get it up to specs, and it'll be good.
And then if there's any repair work, it should be off the road in the shoulder.
The only thing that'll be under the road proper is concrete, 30-inch?
Concrete.
30-inch concrete.
Yep.
So that's, yeah, we'll take care of the under the road part of it. Tile connection, you said would be on that
It'll be in the road ditch.
right away,
So
so.
if there's any repair work in the future, it'll be off the road.
Well, it'll take care of the problem. It's a pretty big problem.
Yeah, so.
So is the road closed now?
The road is closed right now, yeah, we closed it last Thursday, so.
Where's, Quebec, close, where are you
Back,
at?
be north of Kruger's house, go across the blacktop to the north about a half mile.
So, is that the excuse we can use why we've never paved that road? We knew that...
Well, it's on the north, you said it's on the north side of the road.
It's on the north side.
Oh, well, can't use that excuse then, 'cause...
But our plan was to do that other half arch this week, and that's gonna get postponed until we get this can of worms.
I was gonna say, we don't really wanna start another till we get the...
And this is the drainage district tile, which district, do you know?
54 or something like that. So, the plans had it ending just at the edge of the right-of-way, or at least that map shows it at the edge of the right-of-way, but obviously it was, the bulkhead and everything is where it ended, and that was underneath the road, so.
You think, no one knows for sure, but the road maybe got moved over to the top of it?
Could've been, yeah, could've been moved over years ago. Right-of-way was widened probably in the 60s. So that would've been about the same time as, I mean, I'm just guessing. I don't know
Well, yeah, I mean...
Concrete for steel to rot, but...
That would be, like you said, just a reasonable guess, it's been quite a long time ago.
Yep.
But this will fix it, that's the main thing. So, how does this equate back to drainage district repair, they're gonna get?
They'll probably get the invoice for the material in 2 days' work.
It has to be fixed, yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt, but will it, does this fall back entirely on the drainage district then?
That's the question. I'm gonna go in next door and see what we've got, if anything, for plans for DD 54.
Right. But it is that system.
Yeah.
And then we get to the road crossing situation.
Right.
In fact, I mean, county's doing it, fixing it, but
Yeah.
I would say they'd pay for the bulk of it. You may have some that's offset by the road crossing policy and that, but I'm sure you'll sort through all that.
Yeah, if it's private tile, then obviously it'd be on secondary roads, so.
Or what amount, but it's definitely a district tile, that,
I would think so with that size.
that's not a
but-
private tile.
Right.
And you wanna maybe double check, I think district tile, it's in the county right away, and I think that's on secondary roads, not to commit you to that, but you might wanna check that.
For complete repair.
Yeah. I'm not 100% positive on that, but you might wanna check that.
Yeah, that's kinda what I was,
thought that even the maintenance responsibility in the county right away, what I understood was the county's secondary road responsibility, but just double check that, I guess.
Sorry, I'll have to reread it, because I didn't understand it that way.
Okay, yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm gonna check that.
there could be some interesting, district, drainage district code reading.
Yeah, it's in the nighttime.
Yeah, when you
Yeah, sometime when you can't see...
You'll fall asleep right away if you read through that code.
Get into something good. Well, the good news is we're doing it. I mean, we don't have a contractor out there that is sitting there with the meter running, so I guess we do figure it out.
Well, you've done drainage
Find the
district
pipe.
work before, and just how it, you know, is it all drainage district, is it all county, or is there some of each? That's what you gotta determine.
All right, well, we appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks,
Yep.
Ben.
Ben, hey, 4th of July parade, you got a truck for us?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep, we will. We'll make sure we got one cleaned up for you.
I wanna make sure I get that done. Just kidding.
I don't want to walk.
All right.
Thanks, Ben. I don't want to walk, you know.
Yeah.
Well, being Colin's here, we're moving the drainage, we're a little behind now, but aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are in drainage at 9:07.
Hi, Colin.
Hello, morning.
Morning.
I just kinda got a little handout sheet with some of the highlights on it.
Yes, sir.
Filing plans and specifications, so I'm wanting to put this DD 103 out to bid.
Have you had any response from them up, the city up there, or do they have access to this yet, or?
The city of Bode?
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
I just wondered if they gave you any feedback as to their phone's been ringing off the hook, or people are...
No, and I had talked with, I believe his name is Todd, is that right, Ben? With the city of Bode? Yes. I've talked with him a couple different times. I asked him about storm sewer stuff in the town of Bode, and then I asked him about, I wanted to make sure with that, with the lagoons, that there wasn't some pipe
Like
feeding
Ben's,
that we're gonna cross.
like Ben's pipe out in the middle of the
Yeah,
road.
and we're not. I figured it probably wasn't gonna be a problem, but it parallels the railroad tracks, so we're not gonna be crossing that.
Okay, good.
I'm proposing a bid date of, or to open bids on July 25th, so that gives it a month. Sometimes we go 3 weeks, but I figure with the 4th of July in there,
That's
it'd be better just to
acceptable.
give an extra week. What I don't have on here is I'm looking at a proposed contract completion date of April 14th of 2023. So essentially, get it done before planning next spring. And they'll have to work on it this fall, obviously. It would be a bad idea to just think they're gonna roll in next March or something, get it done. But if they do have to come up and touch on things a little bit next spring, then, I think we'd be okay with that, as long as it doesn't interfere with planting. Let's see. I did include several bid alternatives. So, we talked about that at the hearing a couple weeks ago. So, the base bid is mostly 18 and 15 inch reinforced concrete pipe, and I've got a cost estimate of $265,000 for that. Then I've got 3 different alternates. One is larger RCP, that adds about $50,000, I'm estimating. And then we've got these 2, the same size pipes, but plastic. And you can see that I'm estimating those to be more than the RCP. And I keep running into this every time. You think that plastic is cheaper and the material itself is, but then you start getting into it with the rock, and there's additional requirements, like they can't put in pipe when there's water in the trench at all, so they gotta de-water, and that adds stuff. And then we wanna, it can deflect, so we wanna do a mandrel test, and basically that's pulling this kind of a metal ball that's a little bit less than the diameter of the pipe, and pull it through to make sure it hasn't scrunched when they install it. And the problem with that is that you have to be able to, you wanna wait 30 days after you install the pipe. So it's not like you can just kinda do it as you're going, and then you need access points. So that was one of the things that added cost here too, is that at the places where we were just gonna have elbows, instead we had to put plastic manhole structures. And that would be, if we did those, we'd bury them deep enough so that they're not gonna interfere with cropping. But they could still get into those, get down there and do these mandrel tests.
Question on that mandrel test business, is that a requirement? Is that...
It's recommended, and I would recommend it, because
So it's
you spend $300,000 on this system, and it's draining cropland and most of the town of Bode. And when it's most likely to have problems is right away.
Right.
And we've got, basically, if it failed, they would have to replace that at their cost, the contractor. So that's part of it too. It's like, well, it's a little bit scary. If this scrunches and it doesn't pass, then so we better buff up our bid price a little bit to protect ourselves.
Well, I mean, to cut to the chase with all that, I mean, it's fair you put in, we kind of discussed it, and you put in the plastic option. So, you know, I don't know, it'll be interesting to see what the bids come in at with that option. I guess that's the best way to say it.
And everything else that are, I guess, additional requirements that you wouldn't normally have with RCP, the mandrel testing I haven't seen it in like a standard as a requirement, but it is strongly recommended. And I'd recommend it too, just because of concerns with if that crunches, especially right away.
Yeah.
You wanna know about it, because the system is expensive and you're intending it to last for the next 100 years.
Well, where you have the city of Bode included in it too, that's kind of another concern.
Well, it's yeah, it is a concern, but if anybody's drainage, whether it's the cities or the farmers,
Right, you've got a
yeah.
lot more people involved with the
Yeah.
city.
And that's kind of a bigger picture thinking with the plastic pipe. Like, I know there's a struggle where you've got contractors and farmers and stuff that put it in and don't follow some of this stuff. And that's fine, they can do that, it's on their own private property, and it probably would be okay. These drainage district systems in particular, like you said, Sandy, when it's included with a town, there's so many people that rely on these trunk mains, they're collector systems.
Right.
And you gotta have a kind of a higher standard of reliability for those. You don't want them to fail.
Well, I'm saying that, you don't want any system to fail.
Well, no,
I know what you're saying,
But you have a whole town, a
Right.
whole bunch of people that if we have problems with anything backing up,
then it's, back to the...
then you've got lots of problems. And you got lots of people calling, and we don't wanna disappoint those people either.
Oh, we don't want to disappoint anybody.
And I really don't want to disappoint anybody, Eric, but I'm just saying you have a fix.
No, I know, I got it, but it just, it makes sense, I'm not disagreeing, I understand it. Probably, I think Colin touched on it, if it's more of a private, not even drainage
Right.
district, period, and you get into the private, that takes away, to the landowner really at that point, and a lot less people counting on it, and the concerns, but...
I guess the good news is whatever is seed corn out there now, if we did this, say, like your proposal of July 25th, we'll be able to know that they're taking corn out end of September, whatever their date is. They always know, the farmer knows when it's full. So that way we can let whoever bids it know that, it'll be open fairly early.
That's one thing I actually forgot, I just thought about that this morning, I didn't put in this, so I'll just make sure that before we send it out to potential contractors, that I get that in there. It shouldn't really be too big of an issue, because by the time we open bids, and then we do the back and forth, the contract documents, awarding, the contract and all that, and having a pre-construction meeting, it's gonna be about that time anyways, but they should still know that.
But if we go to, say they bid concrete, we'll probably have a bigger issue getting the concrete pipe earlier than what, we're going.
That could be a problem here.
Right, that's what I thought.
Short turnaround, and a lot of them have already booked their, but it's not...
Not like we're doing 7 miles of it.
Yep,
So
that helps, but it'd be interesting to see. Hopefully they can get pipe and be reasonably priced.
Well, I guess we put it in there like you have it as a, proposal for, concrete / plastic, see where we got, but if you are, this mandrel test, I agree, we need to be able to make sure that the thing is gonna flow, that it wasn't backfilled incorrectly. You go through all the work of putting the rock in the trench with it, we wanna make sure it's gonna work, so.
Well, one other thing with that is that, like, we're not out there every second of every day when they're working, and that's part of it too. If we were there watching them, make sure they get it under the haunches and get it in, maybe it'd be a different story, but
Right.
that's a different cost altogether, so
I like your comment, though, at the end, it just said, see how the bids come in, at least the options are out there. That's the interesting part of it. It's a good one.
Well, with that,
One thing I wanted to note were the items, and, you know, I know you and I looked at that upper end of it.
Yep.
I mean, it's just one of those, you know, it's kind of just the end of it where the water gets, it's mostly surface, not just all surface water.
yeah.
It's meandering is a good word, I think. It's way into this new system, and it'll be a new system after it's built. You know, it goes from here, down the road, over there, and then finally get into the tile part of the system where it ultimately drains. And I know Carl and I looked at it, in order to regrade the ditch, which it will work that way. I mean, it's not that it wouldn't work, but we looked at the options of more underground drainage, which, you know, once you get that set up, that stays there where the grading, it's gonna be a maintenance situation. In fact, it probably should be a maintenance situation now that hasn't been very well maintained. So I just, you know, and look at that as, you know, it's not that it won't work, but when you're doing anything, it's, whatever you're building, it's always less expensive to do it when you're doing it than it is to do it after the fact. If there was ever a time, you know, it's kind of what we talked about too when we looked at it.
Really, kinda at the end, what it came down to in my mind is that, was it worth the cost of adding this pipe in there just to get it underground? And if we've got, these road ditches are acting as a channel, and it's, like you said, it's all surface runoff, so let's just use that, even though it does have to go around,
Makes it a U-shape, yeah.
let's use that those surface drainage channel and get it to this pipe. And the grades are steep enough that it should keep it, like, if you get too flat, then all of a sudden, it doesn't take much filling in and it's all screwed up.
Yep.
But this has enough grade to it that, it should be pretty good. But like you said, there'd still be a little bit of maintenance probably gonna be needed. But on the west side of the road, there's that intake that's too high that Ben's mentioned. We're gonna reset that lower, so there will still be some water that will get underground on the west side of the road.
On the west side, yeah.
And then come under, and then that'll be hooked into the new system.
Yeah, there is you're familiar with New Law. There's a tremendous amount of surface water when...
Well, in that huge parking area.
It's way more than it ever was with their new facilities and stuff. It's just a tremendous amount, but, yeah, not that it isn't, you know, workable, and the intake will help. We're going to the existing tile that goes under the road, and then where it's on the east side will be hooked into the new system.
Well, all that being said, I'll make the motion to approve the plans and specifications for a DD 103 tile improvement project. Direct the engineer to proceed towards the bid letting and set the bid letting for July 25th, 2022 at 9 a.m.
Looks like 9 a.m. is wide open on the 25th.
25th? I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to proceed with DD 103.
That would be the bid letting date.
Yep.
I guess my other question was, I know Rick made a comment, I know we don't have a whole lot of tiles that we know of, but everything will be, in the plans for the as-built and the GPS hookups for anything, so we don't have to chase that rabbit again, right? That will be in there?
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's in there, that they have to provide that information, and, yeah, there's gonna be no payment or anything until they get that. And it even says, if they don't do that, they're gonna have to dig that stuff back up at their own cost.
There you go, that's where we're wanting to head towards, so.
Perfect.
9 AM, 103 on the 25th. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Looks like you gotta come back on the 25th, Colin.
All right.
Thanks, Colin.
When do we get, I mean, like I said, I like your options, and I think it was good discussion on them, but just go back to the, RCP option between the 18 to 12 and the 24 to 12 option. Who's gonna make that ultimate decision when these bids come in? Us?
Well, we get to,
Yeah.
but we also get to have the input from the people that
Like to hear
are
from
paying
the
for it.
district paying for it, absolutely.
I mean, if they decide, well, that plastic option to me is...
Well, I was just, I was gonna use just a
I
concrete.
know, I'm just saying, but if they jump all over that plastic and say, well, that, we wanna stay well, okay.
I was just using the upsizing, using the concrete.
Right.
That are listed. Yeah, I know it's 50,000, but then again, just food for thought. It's a lot of money even today, but it's still less than it'll ever be in talking of serving, you know, the 100-plus years that this will be in existence. You built it plenty big to begin with versus, you know, we may not be around, Colin probably will be, but somewhere along the line, like the city improves their infrastructure, and all of a sudden there's more water going into it, and the system is just barely making it. And they say, gosh, what was that, about 10 years ago they put this system in, which would have been bigger.
Well, we'll see what the bids come in as, but sometimes it's really easy, like if the bid for the upsize comes in at the estimate for the smaller one, like, well...
I would've
hold the big one.
Hold my breath, but...
But you never know, we just have to see how things come in.
Just a thought.
Well, that's good. I guess we'll see where we end up on the 25th.
Do we have anything else on, that DD11 branch and the reclassification, or we,
Just the hearing.
that's, when was that set?
The 18th.
18th.
July, yep.
Double check that. Yep, okay.
That's what I got, 9 o'clock?
Yep.
Good. Just more district stuff.
All right, thanks, Colin.
Very good, thank you, that looks good.
Anything else in drainage?
Yes. Terry sent a message that, Rodney Christopher was in here he's got a hole out there in 35, right? Section 1435 would be that, one that King put in a couple of years ago. The nightmare that we have. I haven't got a hold of Rodney yet. I don't know, I suppose he thinks I'm somebody trying to sell him something. He hasn't answered my call yet, but I'm trying to get a hold of him, and that is seed corn. So we have to dance when they want us to be out there, but she said, the way he talked, Dial thought we could get across some of the grassy area. He figured it'd take a couple loads of dirt.
That's what he said, yeah.
So, I guess...
Just settlement?
Well, that's what, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming that they're gonna wanna dig down in there, but I doubt if they're gonna let anybody dig too much in that corn area, the seed corn, so I gotta get a hold of him to see how we proceed, and if they don't let us dig,
Might have to wait till after the seed, he's gonna have to wait till the seed corn's gone.
yeah, and the way our rain's coming, we'll be safe, but we get a monsoon and we already got, needing 2 loads of dirt, we could end up with more dirt in that hole, so, and I'm assuming it's going somewhere, it's gotta be going into a pipe.
If it's sunk like that, then there's gotta be a broken tile.
And I'm sure the reason that they're wanting to do something is because of the fact that they're gonna have kids out there roading and cutting corn and...
Maybe they'll have to
all those
leave.
kids.
If there's anything as a compromise to get it fixed now.
Well, I guess I'll try to get a hold of Rodney today here. If I have to, I'll drive out after the meeting and try to track him down, but just let you know, she sent that stuff to me, and I've been trying to reach out to him and haven't touched base with him.
Good deal.
Then, we still have a phone call from our friend out west that he wants more of that rock out of the ditch, and I'm working with him on trying to figure out how much he wants away from that fence, and so I'll talk to you later.
I can dig a hole.
Okay. Well, it's like we took it, you took it away from the fence, and he's worried about the flow of the water. And I said, Roger, right now, we'd all hope we'd have flow of water.
He filled the creek in with his own.
I know. So, I'm supposed to go out there sometime today, so I'll get, when I go out to Roger or go out to Rodney's, it's just down the road, I'll be in touch, so. Other than that, that's all I have for drainage. Thank you, Terry, for that, sending me that.
Drainage. Second.
We have a motion and a second to go out of drainage at 9:29. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Pose same sign, we're out of drainage.
Back on time.
There you go.
All right.
Now we're waiting for that Mr. Kern. But all he's here. This must be our update.
Yes.
The insurance business.
Oh, busy as ever.
No big storms,
Yeah, nothing too terrible.
you know, thank you.
That's enough. So?
Rick, yeah, you might throw one down for him too.
I'll throw one down.
Later.
Okay, well, good morning. Thank you for having me this morning. Wanted to go through with the board our insurance renewal, kind of visit the last 12 months, give some claim background, and then go over the packet that I have in front of you. I'll start, unfortunately, this year isn't going to be as good of a presentation as we had last year. Last year, premiums were down, thankfully mostly to work comp. Unfortunately, we pretty much reversed course everything we came back last year. Mod factor and things have jumped up, and we'll go through the details on that. So, on that side, that's driven work comp back up, and we'll touch base on, we had Trish and Ben and I met with a representative of IMWCA Loss Control a couple weeks ago, just shy of 2 weeks ago. I've included some of his recommendations in the packet here. When we get to that, we'll touch on it. But we'll start with the pack from ICAP, which is our property, our liability, our automobiles, equipment, things of that nature. We'll go through, that's the first part of our packet. And, the nature of not only the economy, but the insurance industry over the last few years, we've had inflation driving up material costs, supply chain issues, and obviously more active weather patterns have generated more than average, above average claim counts, so it's kind of a double whammy. You have above average claim counts, you have the ratios on December 15th, and things that are just unheard of, and then along with that, you're paying more to get things repaired than you ever have in the past as well. So just to kind of go on the property page, this is just sort of a summary of what our policy has. Once the policy gets delivered to us here in a few weeks, Trish her copy,
and each department head will get a chance to review their equipment lists and vehicle schedules and buildings as well. But we're on a blanket value of coverage, and as you can see in the middle of the page, our blanket values are $18,887,000. And ICAP did a pretty strong adjustment on the valuations just because of material costs and things, the current inflation environment that we're in. So that 18.8 is up about 1.26 million over the prior year as far as coverage limits go. We still have a $1,000 deductible, special cause of loss, it's on a replacement cost basis. There, and then our crime section is unchanged. We have our limit of $200,000. It's an employee dishonesty bond, so to speak, crime coverage. That's a blanket form. We do have two separate bonds that cover our elected officials, treasurer. Treasurer has their own, and then all other elected officials and department heads are fall under another bond. But this would be just any general employee dishonesty, somebody's taking things out the back of the shop and selling them on eBay and things like that, so. General liability, public officials and law enforcement, this is one area, outside of weather and things that, again, just the state of the insurance industry, this is one area where liability, law enforcement, employment practices have seen a great uptick. They call it the social inflation factor. Is more and more people are looking to file lawsuits for things that have happened to them, and the awards unfortunately continue to grow. And of course we ourselves faced that very same thing this year. We had one of those lawsuit claims get settled, or hit us and get settled this year. But we have a $2 million umbrella or liability limit per occurrence. Of course, our umbrella policy, which we'll go through later, goes over the top of this, which we increased last year. So we have a $2 million per occurrence. As you can see down the list there, typically liability does not carry a deductible with it, except for when we get to the bottom half of that coverage schedule. Anything that has to do with our E&O, our law enforcement, or our employment practices, harassment type things, wrongful termination things, those do carry that $5,000 deductible. And so that should be there.
Now, this change, because what's this, can you explain the retro date, 7/1/22,
Yeah,
Scott?
I'm just gonna touch on that too. Retro date, so what this, that sort of ties in, item at the bottom of the page, it's claims made coverage. So basically, there's two forms of liability coverages you can have. There's an occurrence form and there's a claims made form. Typically, your general liability on occurrence form, what that means is it doesn't matter what policy is in force, it's when the claim occurred. So maybe the claim occurred last year, and it finally rears its head and gets filed today. The policy that was in force back when the claim occurred is the one that responds. Under a claims made coverage, doesn't matter when the claim actually occurred, if the policy that reacts is when the claim is actually presented or made. And so that's why they have the retroactive date, is basically they're saying, since this is a claims-made policy, when the claim gets presented, it's going to go, and of course we're looking at the renewal of July 1st, saying that everything's going to hit the July 1st policy. It doesn't matter if it happens in the 2020 period, the 2021 period, if the claim gets presented from a liability perspective, it'll be how the policy reads 2022, right, at that time. Versus like a property claim or what have you, that's more occurrence-based, if the claim happened in 2021 and just didn't get to us until 22, how the policy read in 21 is how that would be handled. Okay? Make sense? Okay. Business auto, again, liability limits unchanged. We have $2 million as a base liability level for any bodily injury or property damage we would do when it's our fault. We have our uninsured motorist coverage included. Our comp and collision deductibles that we have on our vehicle schedule is shown there. And, as we noted, you just don't really get a whole lot of bang for your buck at the bottom there to look at a higher $1,000 deductible on the collision side. Annual savings is pretty minimal there at this point. That may change going forward, but for now, ultimately it's your decision, but with the vehicle schedule we have, I don't think it's worth looking at this point. We do have the higher non-owned auto continued to be on there. That's if anybody's driving their own personal vehicle for a meeting, for a conference, and they get into an accident, they cause an accident, it's their fault. Your own personal policy responds first. You're driving your own car, it responds first. But if something severe enough happens to where legal action gets involved and they determine and discover that we are on the clock for the county going to a meeting, and we exhaust our personal policy, then that higher than auto endorsement from the county will protect the county if they get robbed. Okay. Equipment floater. This is where all of our backhoes, road graders, skid loaders, all those kind of movable, non-licensed equipment goes. And, as well as our communication equipment that we have on the tower. So that's just pretty much based on the list that Ben reviews, Todd reviews. Every year we'll get those lists to them so we can get that updated. The deductible is $1,000 there. This is all actual cash value, so rather than replacement value, this is depreciated value coverage here, just like an automobile schedule would be on that.
Hey Scott, back on the driving, your own personal versus our county. Visited with Dean the other day, and he said he's got that pickup over there that they use for things. He said that we've used that a couple of times because it sits in the shed all the time, and he said he highly recommends that it gets driven. So I take that to a meeting, is that I'm covered like Ben driving our company truck,
Yep.
or our county truck.
Yeah, anybody associated with the county, or quite frankly, any county department head that would give permission for somebody to drive that, you would be covered if you...
I just wanted to make sure that was with, because Dean said that thing doesn't go anywhere for weeks at a time, and he said it needs to be driven so that it's used, and I said, well, maybe that's a way we can not have to drive our
personal car.
personal vehicle, so...
Sure, but it sounds like a resource to...
If they keep one like that, I think it has a topper on it, but if you don't mind driving something that is a topper or whatever, so I just thought I'd ask that.
Yeah, ICAP does not require us to submit a driver's list.
Good.
Whether they're full-time employees or, elected officials, we don't have to submit a driver's list, so I think the only requirement would be that either you be a county employee or elected official, or you have permissive use by a department head for somebody who would need to drive something.
Well, Sandy's getting the pickup from Ben for the parade, so she'll be...
There you go. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Workers' compensation, through IMWCA. I think, I won't dwell on it really right now. I've got some other things at the end that we'll look at, but, of course, we have our $1 million worth of liability there. Any kind of indemnity, whether it be medical or lost time, is unlimited. There is no limit. The $1 million is only in legal situations where the law would allow somebody who has been awarded workers' compensation, which generally that is the sole remedy, but in certain gross negligence situations, there may be allowable lawsuits to come back. We have that $1 million worth of coverage there. But some of the things that on workers' compensation, you can see our experience modification is now at 1.1. We were at 0.87 last year, and we'll go through some of the details of why that changed dramatically. But that's a significant change to move from .87, a 13% credit to a 10% surcharge. And that's a big reason of what happened there. Our premium discount credit, you can see on there, that's saving, that's basically made up of a couple of things, large premium credit and our longevity credit that they say. And that actually increased by a percentage. It was 17% last year, we're up to 18% this year. And then you can see the other thing that impacted us down to more of the good experience credit. We are at 0, where we were at 17% last year. And that credit kind of goes hand in hand with the experience modification factor. So you start gaining a good experience credit once your mod factor gets below .96, .95 and below. And so the farther your mod factor goes below 1, the greater that good experience credit grows. There's also, some of the pages that I included at the end, there's other things that IMWSA looks at to award good experience credits as well, and that's just looking at loss control recommendations and implementing those things that they recommend. So you can see there, that's where the premium will sit net in at $101,983, and that's up. Last year, obviously, we saw big gains. We were down to $49,565 last year, so we doubled our workers' compensation premium. 2 years ago, we were at $92,970, so it's not that far off from years ago, but obviously we would have liked to have held on to where we were last year a little bit longer. And I'll go into, I got some numbers too that I'll share with you a little bit more. Then the umbrella policy. Last year, we made the decision to add $2 million, an extra $2 million layer to this, so we were now at $6 million on top of those $2 million primary policies, so we've got a combination of $8 million up from there. And then, of course, ICAP still has up to $15 million combination total available, so those increased limits and premiums are indicated down below. But again, we did just add to that last year. So then we get to the premium summary, and you can see, some of these categories really didn't get affected much other than exposure differences. For instance, the business auto is just up slightly, but on the auto, we added a boom truck for conservation, we added a trailer in secondary road, sheriff department updated, took a 14 Dodge off the run and added a 21 Tahoe. So we added some units and upgraded some units, that really explain that difference there. Same way with the equipment floater, we added over $372,000 worth of equipment, out there. I think, we added an excavator and a John Deere loader with a bucket and grapple attachment. So there you're adding coverage, and that's primarily the difference on the premiums there. The general liability is, again, that liability section where social inflation has taken a hold of that. Obviously, we do have a few extra pieces of equipment on the road, so some of that is the extra pieces of equipment for our liability, but there is some rate taken in there that ICAP hasn't taken the liability rate for several years on that. Commercial property, again, like I mentioned, we with the cost of and inflation on materials, most of that cost is due to the extra $1.6 million of coverage that our statement of values was adjusted just to keep up with what it would take to rebuild on that. And there is a little bit of rate. Property still struggles with Mother Nature, what Mother Nature has thrown with us at us over the last several years. The umbrella difference is reflecting our additional $2 million worth of coverage that we added. Workers' compensation, I'll touch on that a little bit. Outside of the things we've already talked about, the mod factor and the experience credits, we'll look at what's driving that. E&O and law, that's the biggest thing. That's where the two biggest liability claims that have hit ICAP over the few years has either been, you know, people coming after law enforcement, recording everything that they do, and then making an issue out of it, or some sort of employment-related issues with harassment, wrongful terminations, discrimination, anything like that, which we fell victim to here. So that's where probably the biggest chunk of just a pure rate change from ICAP is coming from in that area there. Otherwise, it's just been some exposure changes with the property rate change.
Almost doubled.
Yeah, right, yeah, over.
Yeah.
Yep. For sure. Okay, so then, the next page back, I'll kind of touch on work comp, and then we'll wrap up with just a claims history on the property and that side. But on the workers' compensation, this year, so this is a 5-year history. And that's kind of, you know, we've talked about the mod factor looks at the oldest 3 of the current 5. And once it starts showing the numbers, the 4th line down, the total incurred losses, that's kind of what's the driver there of claims. And you can see the big year that rolled on, but that's kind of a recent development there. That was a claim that ended up being determined that there was some permanent disability involved. It was an accident where somebody was responding to an emergency situation, snagged a foot on some carpet or on the stairs, and then I think ended up having some surgery, medical things, and not getting full use of their leg or ankle or knee. And so there's been a partial permanent disability settlement that's come on there. But that is the big factor, the big driver there, that is now impacting our mod factor for you in a big way. So yeah.
That'll fall off next year, right?
Right, because this is actually, so that's the one thing that's kind of the good and bad, is that this claim actually was a 19 claim, so it was already on the calculations for this year, but because ultimately it doesn't look like there's going to be full recovery, they had to give a partial permanent disability payment that rolls on. So now this is actually in year 2 of that 3-year window going forward, so we'll have it for 1 more year. Okay. Otherwise, our current year claim count, we had 7 claims looking at the very last column. We're at $16,600 worth of claims. All 7 of those claims are closed right now, so you shouldn't really see anything else higher on that one, coming there. So the biggest thing that drove that was unfortunately that payment. And then behind the next page, any questions on that, I guess, before I flip the page? I mean, that's kind of an important thing, that's what's affecting it. I guess if there's any good news, it's only gonna happen, we'll be on that roll for 1 more year. So then, obviously, with the significant change, IMWCA does do periodic loss control visits, but I think they visited us just because things changed dramatically. I'm not surprised that they called on us. So we met with Trish. Bill Dickey from IMWCA came up. We were at Trish's office for a little bit. We went out and visited Ben for a little bit. And this is what he came back and submitted as recommendations to help try to start improving some thought processes and safety and learn from the claims that have happened, there. And so he's asking that these type of things are to be implemented, provide responses accordingly, and give an update there. So, appointing a safety coordinator, establishing a safety committee, which I think some of that groundwork involved has already been rolling. That's kind of why we went out and visited with Ben. He's got those kind of things in the works. A return to work policy, one of the big things Bill mentioned on that is that can really help keep mod factor numbers down from the pure stance that if you can keep a claim that's medical only, because we had actually a couple of these over the past few years where once they're off work for 3 days, then they are entitled to an indemnity payment, which just means they're lost wages. You know, they don't have to take vacation or hurt at work, so they will get paid for being off work after a 3-day window. Once a claim gets into the, what they call the indemnity status, then 100% of what is charged for medical, and then the indemnity goes into the formula. If we can keep it out of the indemnity phase, you know, so somebody's fairly minor, we can get them back to work after that 3-day window. Yeah, maybe they might just have to sit and, you know, do some light paperwork or light duty, but we're not paying an indemnity payment. Then the medical side of it only gets charged at 30% of what the medical ends up being. So, you know, it could be, we $5,000-$6,000 worth of medical, $10,000 worth of medical, but as long as they're at light duty return to work, we're only getting charged 30% of that on the formula, versus if they get 1 day, and I think we had one where they were only off for 4 days, you know, so it kind of indicates that they probably were well enough that they could have sat there and just done something.
Yeah.
That would have kept the whole, everything out of it, and we would have only been charged 30% rather than 100% of, lost time with medical. So that's kind of what that's relating to, and why Bill recommended that that's something that would be nice to get implemented. And then just a incident review process, that's just learning from, you know, hey, this happened, we're not, you know, upset at the employee how it happened, we just want to learn from it. So that's just sort of documenting what happened, maybe understanding, hey, let's not have this sitting here, or let's add this safety feature so it doesn't happen again. So that's what I wanted to share, for comp-wise, that IMWCA is there as a resource. They have a specialist, an HR specialist, that can help with some of the return to work and the, you know, the general safety manual type stuff as a resource, because, you know, obviously they want to help try to get things heading in the right direction. Any questions on that part before we go over to some general information on the what I call the package side for property, liability, autos?
Well, I guess the one thing that the workers probably get tired of Ben and their foreman preaching safety, is you see how quickly something goes from 1 year we're bad to had a good year to we had a couple of hiccups, and all of a sudden we're right back in. So
yeah, you can see
we can't preach it enough, I guess is the
right. Yeah, where you can definitely see where safety over the long haul will pay. Even if you have to spend a little bit of time and or dollars training and watching videos, and, you know, taking an hour out of actually doing work to do some things, because it's, you know, just like we saw, there could be $50,000 in 1 year that can be saved over the long haul, and that adds up.
right. So I guess, Ben, just keep preaching there. I mean, that's, if we see something, the foremen have to make sure they make note of it and pull them aside, and so.
Yeah, and it's, you know, the county does have a lot of high-risk positions. It's not only, you know, secondary roads with heavy equipment, but you've got law enforcement there, in the line of fire, and, you know, those, historically, that's where we've seen the claims arrive from, is either sheriff's department or secondary roads over the years.
And we'll make sure we tell the
That's why most of our claims aren't associated with operating the heavy equipment, it's when we're out of the equipment doing physical labor, that's the claims show up.
I don't think we're picking on secondary roads, but I don't think we have a whole lot of the women in here misusing a computer.
And that's, you know, and to that point, that's why it's reflected, when you look at a workers' compensation, they classify it by class, there's hundreds of classification codes, and so clerical being one of them, that's a 20-cent rate versus law enforcement or secondary, a lot of the road work things, those are $3, $4, $5 rate instead of 20 cents, and so that's reflected on the risk and exposure there. Okay. Then just to touch on the package real quick, we had, over the past year, 6 claims, and that is totaling, of course, one of them, we're just about ready to get repairs, but I think it's a pretty firm estimate, so assuming nothing changes big there, 6 claims, those 6 claims, the total payout for ICAP this year is $324,300. So, which, obviously, the biggest chunk of that being our lawsuit situation, but... And so, yeah, with that biggest chunk there, you can see why the E&O and the law enforcement and the employment practices section, biggest rate change. The other ones are, right around $100,000 for the other 5 claims. So one, Mother Nature twisted things around on December 15th on the wind tower, the radio tower, twisted some equipment out of line there, so that's a pretty expensive fix. We just had a couple of other tobacco things, and we had a dog training incident. Somebody lost a tooth in a dog training incident,
Well, Scott, so obviously, the good explanation of why rates go up, but kind of along your same explanation of implementing some things and less claims and less dollars on claims, is there a possibility of things going back down?
That is always a tough thing. You have a good chance with ICAP because ICAP is a member pool. And so they don't have to respond to shareholders, they don't have to try to reserve a surplus of X amount, and that's why they do have, it wouldn't necessarily be on the package side potentially, it'd be hard to drive rates back down significantly as much as we can on the work comp side. Work comp is pretty much a formula-driven thing, and so there, you do the work, you're gonna see the results. The ICAP pool, what they would do is if rates, I think before you would see a lot of rate reduction dramatically there, they have a member credit, which they have not issued last year nor this year. Up until that point, they would issue a membership credit based on a prorated return. So that's where, if they felt they have enough reserves, because of how the rates are coming in, they do a return of the reserves to the members. They try to set their rates based on actuarially, somebody's crunching the numbers to say, we expect this many claims historically. They look at, actuaries look at the historical numbers and try to extend it forward. And then out of those claims, we would expect this many dollars. And that's how they try to determine current rates, and as long as unless something dramatically changes, those rates are probably harder to drop than it is work comp.
Do you have a breakdown of by department or by actual claims?
I do. This is current, this is sort of a privacy thing, so just look at it and guess yourself. Yeah, that shows you That's the current year, that's the 7 that happened this year. But I can get more, I can get history, from back.
I'll just make it better known.
Okay. And I did respond to,
Oh, so you've already responded to Bill on some of those, okay, good.
all of them. I told him that we were in process of this, and that Ben was the current safety director.
You emailed that to us so that we could review our, right? Wasn't that emailed, Ben?
So I emailed, all department heads, and sent a bunch of the attachments, a lot of the stuff came from IMWCA's website, that was tweaked for Humboldt County. Got responses from most of the departments as far as forming,
Group?
the group or the incident review committee. Just missing one from the board of supervisors.
Well, we kind of talked, did we think about the chair and vice chair, so that there would always be kind of a...
Look at roles.
Well, if you did the chair and vice chair, you have the ability that next year, the vice chair isn't walking in, and then when you say, well, remember last year when that happened? Well, you'd at least have the ability to sit there for 2 years and hear both ends of the story.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, all that.
I mean, would that work for, what are you guys thinking?
Yeah, that's, so you don't just have, one person and else, and the next person comes on.
I didn't hear anything about it, and so, I guess Sandy and I talked about that the other day. If we did the vice and chair, then as the chair rolls, the next vice would come
There'd be some
and
continuity.
listen to
The way I
2 years' worth.
The way I understood it, talking with Scott and Bill, a couple weeks ago, is, you meet monthly, if there's no incident, you can postpone it, an additional month, but otherwise it's instant review. The department heads have to write up, their view of the incident.
What happened,
They're the ones that send it to the committee or the safety board.
So would there be, and I'm just using Bruce, well, you'd say Bruce Reimers, if Bruce Reimers has had 2 incidents, will we know that this is their second? Will we know that he did something? I mean, I guess I don't know.
I mean, if you're on the committee.
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying, but when the foreman brought this ahead, he'd say this would be his second or their second incident on the board. A year and a half.
Right.
I guess I didn't know what the privacy issue, how they would be privy to that.
Usually the employee's name is stricken from the work comp record. So I would just say we had an employee who had secondary road.
Alright.
This incident happened, and this was the follow-up. Here's how we can change our policy.
Yeah.
Perfect. That worked.
Well, unless there's any other questions, I have some things for Mr. Chairman to sign, to move forward for there's a commitment to membership to ICAP, since it is a member insurance carrier. It just says basically that we have a commitment to continue our membership, we will submit the premiums by I always put the end of July, just because I put everything on a spreadsheet, we send it to Trish, and then she gets that out to the department heads, or, which I think she can pay, the department she pays, but then others approve and pay that. So that gives us time to do that. And then, there's just this proxy where we have Trish and Ben kind of as the main contacts if there are claims, acknowledgements for claims that come through, they get those, and then if there's any important information that ICAP needs to get out to the county. Those two are the contacts that get it, and then they disseminate it to that. So that's, unless the supervisors want to change those two, either of those two, we would just kind of reaffirm that. And then this last one is if, just checking that I was here to talk about things, we reviewed some things, and then unless you want to make any adjustments to higher liability, I've already assumed not, and checked that we are going to not take any increased liability limits, otherwise we can fight that out and say we want to add some other additional coverage there, so.
So with that, we have it on our agenda as, annual insurance renewal. So I'm assuming that's an action item. I'm assuming we're gonna continue on with ICAP.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Second. We have a motion and a second for the annual insurance renewal and review provided by Scott. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. I can sign then.
One of those Bruce sign on the bottom.
Okay.
One of those. She'll sign the last one.
This is still me?
Yep. And then you'll sign, top of the next page, you'll sign, they both sign the last one. So I think you're there, title, chair, and then we'll have three signs.
Well, just so you know, it was a lot more comforting last year when you bring a check and you were all happy.
I know, it wasn't as fun of a meeting this time. Hopefully next year.
We appreciate you coming.
Sure. Yeah, just below at the bottom where, above the auditor there, Trish. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you much.
Yeah.
Good job.
Scott. You too. All right, so it looks like we're down and towards the bottom here, adopt resolution 2022-12. We do that? We didn't do that, right?
Nope, we didn't do that yet.
All right. Do you wanna explain that?
The resolution appropriating the money for the 22-23 fiscal year budget. The total is $15,864,572. Oh, yeah.
I wish it was 15,000.
Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? I'm like, oh.
So,
We do have a copy of that to see where it's going.
All right, I'll make that motion to adopt resolution 2022-12, resolution to appropriate money for fiscal year 22-23.
I'll second that.
we have a motion and a second for that resolution of 2022-12 for the budget of 2022 and 23. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We've already done the, or didn't we? We haven't done the 13, adopt a resolution 2022-13. I guess we just amended the agenda, put the right number. A resolution approving the transfer of $769,042.50 from rural services to basic fund of the secondary roads.
I like that motion.
I'll second Dave's motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second, for that, as stated. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. Anywhere? Oh, I'm sorry. All right. Now we're down to accept and place on file a resolution, by the Board of Directors, Iowa Central Community College, merged Area 5, adopted on the 14th day of June. Said resolution levying a tax for the purpose of paying principal and interest on industrial new jobs training certificate, Series 2022-1, dated June 29th, 2022, and authorize the insurance of the certificate of 2022-1, a multi-fold project, and sold, Tuesday, June 14th. Boy.
Yeah.
What was that?
It was a jobs training, bond that they did, and they actually sold the bonds to someone else. So then they did a resolution on this, and
We were part of that.
you're part of them along with other counties.
All right, well, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries, but I'm not gonna read the whole thing again.
I know, that's why I just said, you read it once, so. Just make it.
Do I have to sign anything on there?
Nope, just accept it.
Just
put it
we
in the file.
accepted it, and so we're to the end. I would also, I find it here, there's been a request from Humboldt newspaper, requesting the paperwork for the, settlement, and under the Iowa Codes, Open Records Act, Trish will provide that. John has told us that we have to provide that if they request it, and so we will carry out with that and put it in their possession. All right, so we're to the point where we are off a week from today because it's the 4th. And we had claims today, so everything should be taken care of. I guess if there's something that comes up between now and, Ben, if you have any hiccup in your road, and you need us to okay something, I guess we can always do it.
I think I got everything squeezed in.
If you'd let us know if you find the 30-inch pipe that we're searching diligently for around the... Can you put that on the radio that we're looking for? I'm teasing you. He was done. Call out for 30-inch pipe, ASAP, we gotta get this road back open.
Yeah, it sounded like Tom had a line on something.
Perfect. Awesome.
Which is good, 'cause if we didn't have it here, it's Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, I mean,
Yeah.
Iowa Falls maybe, but, I mean, they don't usually do round pipe. Iowa Falls is boxes and beams, so it's been a trip.
Well, my truck's in the hospital today, so I could always help you.
Come on up and take a look at it.
No, I used to work out there, so I know where all their plants are.
Oh.
I could drive right to it and see Cedar Rapids, so, anyway. I guess with that, then we'll have next week off, and hopefully we don't have any issues, and I guess wish everybody a happy 4th. Enjoy your weekend. And safe.
Let's go up Thursday,
There you go.
down Tuesday the 5th.
And I've already got a text from Coach, said that he would put that out. I'll remind him Thursday at 5 o'clock, and
5 o'clock.
the more the help, the better, 'cause it sure goes fast. But, with that,
I got one request. Can we look into a different chair? I've raised this one 4 times.
I'd like to just put a spot on it and we put it over here,
Take one of these.
Well, I
but
just-
somehow it gets moved.
Somebody changed it back to this one.
There's they have other meetings in here and
Chin on the table.
that thinks that it's that chair, when people walk in and see that shorter chair, they automatically switch it.
It keeps going down. With that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Pose same sign. I got 10:18. Thank you all.